Bunch of nerds.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another YouTube live stream from the Nerd Room. Myself and Carlos are here to welcome you on this beautiful Friday evening where we're going to be talking about Peacemaker and the Book of Boba Fett. It's time to give Nerd a freaking chance. I know my daughter's watching, so I can't swear the way I'd want to, and we can't go quite into that just yet. But everyone, welcome to, like I said, another live stream here. Very, very excited to get everything going. Carlos, my dude, how are you right now?
I'm doing good, man. I'm ready to give Nerd a freaking chance.
Yes, man. Very, very exciting. You know, guys, we usually do these live streams with some of our brothers, good friends here, and we would not take one more step in this live stream talking about Peacemaker and the Book of Boba Fett without our boys from the Vigilante 1939. So please, everyone, give a warm welcome as they enter the Nerd Room here to the Carusos and Zeddy. Our boys, welcome to the live stream. Gentlemen, how are you all doing this evening?
They're doing fantastic.
Even better now that Zeddy's doing the dance.
Yeah.
Someone cue up Do You Want to Taste It, and we'll get really going.
Yeah.
Man, if we weren't on YouTube, I would have had that plan.
Dude, I'm in a Canadian mood because the weather here, we got a half a foot of snow here in the western suburbs of Chicago.
That's
Well, I hope you got something beside you to warm you up just a little bit.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely.
Oh, man, it was so great to have you guys here. You know,
Awesome.
like we always do, has become a tradition as we wrap and kick off these live, I should say, these streaming service shows with now the first DC one now behind us and our first step away from The Mandalorian with the Book of Boba Fett. So we've got two big shows to wrap. One wrap last week, one wrap just this past Wednesday. So first thing I'm going to do here, guys, is throw up a spoiler tag. We're going deep and we're going full on with both of these shows, including Peacemaker, which had some very big spoiler pieces at the end of it. So caution there. We're going to jump into it and we're going to spoil the heck out of it because we cannot put any handcuffs on anyone for this one because, guys, Peacemaker, we're going to get right into that first. I don't think we can step any further without talking about, come on, Peacemaker. Look at this ensemble. Look at this cast. I got to hear thoughts. We haven't had a chance to really break this down in any real detail, and we're not going to deep dive into episode by episode, but first things first, Carusos, I want to bring you right into this one. Peacemaker as a whole, as a streaming service show compared to what we've had in the past, compared to what we're getting right now, thoughts on not only how they've taken it out of the cinematic space and brought it into the streaming space, but this show, like, did it land for you the same way it seemingly has landed for everyone else?
Oh, me first.
You first.
You usually you tapped me as you were finishing, and I didn't know I'm after.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, also as the resident Peacemaker today, I've been told I was him. Very honored for that. I was gonna wear something else, but when I was told I was serving as Chris Smith for today, I had to rock it. Shout out to Carlos's fam there. You know what, guys? It was and I tweeted this and I said this last night. The show for me was like a really solid, kick-ass 1970s to 1980s rock album, right? That's just pedal to the metal, start to finish, with a lot of fun, a lot of riffs, but also some really nice, sweet power ballads in there. The emotional moments are in there. And while only like once or twice was I critical of the show, just like an album, there's a couple songs that you skip. But for the show, the hits were greater than the skips, and I had a great time with it. It was a great way to spend. We normally watch it on Thursday or Friday. For the most of us, it was on a Friday. So it was a great way to kick off the weekend. I always had fun watching it. And James Gunn is a master of characters.
Yes.
I love the entire cast so much. And I was not ready to say goodbye when it ended. I wasn't ready to say goodbye to it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to, like, I love Suicide Squad, and probably John Cena's character was not particularly interesting to me from the movie. And I was one of those people that was like, all right, we're going to get a show. Why is it him? And so you go into these things and you're always wondering, like, how does he make it? Like, how is he going to define him? How am I going to care about him? And I mean, the show didn't miss a beat. It was fantastic. It was, I find myself angry that I ever really doubt James Gunn, because he just brings the heart, the emotion, the humor. He can do it family style. He can do it crude style, but he really delivered here. And it wasn't even, Cena was the real standout for me because I thought he was exceptional, but the whole cast, everybody was great. The story was great. The development of the characters, the relationships, just a home run for DC out of the box here. Right. And so different than what everybody else is doing in Marvel and Disney with Star Wars, right? This is really its own flavor, its own thing.
Yeah, and it really garners a completely different fan base, but at the same time, the same people. You know what I mean? They let James Gunn do James Gunn, and he seems to have a couple different gears, you know, depending on what he's producing for. He's able to do different things, which I think is just a testament to his strength as a creative, as a writer, as a director. The fact that he can walk one line with Guardians of the Galaxy and bring these characters to lunchboxes, to action figures, to cartoons, to being household names. And then a couple years later, here he is doing the same thing with the Suicide Squad, and then making Peacemaker, someone that everybody is talking about, that everybody wants to know more about. There's not a lot of history to dig into, but they're really paving just a wonderful path here for what can be done on the streaming service with characters that aren't necessarily your CBA characters, right? This character sits way down there, and all it takes is a good creative. So Carlos, come on into the room here and talk to me about Peacemaker a bit more holistically before we dive into some of the little arcs and some of the character nuances that we saw.
Oh man, like I think Nico put it beautifully, where this thing was just so perfectly crafted, and it just had you locked from the time it started until the time it finished. And like, what a finale did we get just a couple nights ago? It blew my mind. And like, hats off to DC for taking some risks. Like, they're, you know, everything that they're doing is kind of on shaky ground, right? And they know that the scrutiny is going to be put to them, but they're just like, no, we believe in this guy's vision, and we're going to let him do what he needs to do. And where they let him take this thing, and it's just spectacular. It's just like it's just awesome, and it feels like it's its own unique vision and sits completely aside from everything else they've done. But at the same time, it feels like and they very much made it part of the existing thriving universe that they have, and it was just such a cool thing. And I love that they took the risk. I love that it paid off for them. And like you said, they take this character that's a nothing type property that they have, and they turn it into something of international renown. Like, amazing. Who would have thought?
Well, that's it, Zeddy. This being DC's first step into the streaming service, the first step into HBO Max in a show capacity, an episodic, a weekly drop. This is a very bold step. This isn't kicking it off with a Gotham story or something that's very familiar. Was this the right first step for DC into this space?
I'm gonna say yeah. And not just because that's the popular answer, but I think for 8 weeks, we judged whether or not we even wanted this show. Right? At least I did. And I am somebody that watched WWE, so I knew deep down that John Cena probably could carry a show on his own, just because he's absolutely booming with charisma. So I think this was just a fun, awesome, let loose DC show, and I think that's the one thing that, granted, maybe Shazam, us DC fans haven't really gotten it, other than the Suicide Squad, was a really let loose, fun DC show. And I think this was probably the perfect one to kick it off. And I think it it speaks to the ensemble, like you guys said. Because I mean, outside of maybe John Cena, who else is really recognizable in this show, right? I mean, Doom Patrol has Brendan Fraser and had Timothy Dalton. Titans had Bunton Thwaites. If you watch the one Pirates of the Caribbean film that he was in, so if you really no offense,
the mustache, man, it's the mustache.
Yeah.
You got
so
laugh.
if you're really looking at it, this is the one that arguably had the biggest star in its show, and I guarantee you people watch it because that man has fans like no other. So success was never going to be an issue with this thing. But yeah, overall, I think it was the perfect thing, and obviously you can tell week to week that this thing was jiving with a lot of people, and from the opening credits, which is still the most terrific thing that I've ever seen on DC television, still to this day, to the finale that blew all of our minds. Kudos to them, man. I mean, James Gunn, you guys said it. We shouldn't have doubted him, and why I still do, I don't know, but I'll address that later.
Yeah, and the thing that I think blows me the most away with the success here is that as it gained momentum week on, week out with that opening credits, which I never skipped once. I don't know about you guys, but I watched that thing through every single time. Netflix or any other show, I'm like, okay, let's get through this. This one I watched framed up, sitting there engaged every single time. And that goes a long way to what James Gunn's able to bring with his engagement of people. Because if I look, some of the Star Wars stuff and some of the Marvel stuff, you have a Marvel tag, you have a Star Wars tag, it already brings an audience in. I think this one in particular, even if you didn't have the DC tag, and it wasn't even like floated out there as being this big, huge DC property, right? It wasn't connected to much, like you said, Carlos. And it didn't rely on the branding to bring people in. It really relied on word of mouth and the creatives and those that are involved. And yes, it does tie to a bigger DC cinematic experience. But at the same time, I don't think a lot of people coming into this from the periphery would really know that this is a DC property because it's not really put in front of you. So I think that speaks to the success of it, that it kind of stood on its own two legs for at least the first couple weeks. And then after that, it runs. And so the critical point here, Nico, like DC, the branding, this standing on its own, does that speak to where this could go down the road?
I do, and I'm glad you brought this up because the success of the show does feel really earned. Like from week to week, it brought in audience. Well, like Zeddy said, like John Cena has this massive audience, so maybe they tuned in, maybe DC fans tuned in, but you're right, in the market, like we know it's DC. I don't think a lot of people would necessarily have known this was DC because the marketing, the trailers, you didn't really see that tag, which maybe was a good marketing move because part of the GA sees DC and they roll their eyes, unfortunately. But I think with the success it had, with people now knowing it's DC, and with the little breadcrumbs and he does so much like word building through dialogue in this show that you're right. Now when it ends with the cameo, with the way the story launches into, it's sort of a cliffhanger, but not really, but it is in a way for characters like Adebayo and Amanda Waller and for previous members of Task Force X. I think this maybe has gathered some new DC fans and are willing to see where this story goes, where James Gunn goes from here. And then those fans can figure out there's a whole new plethora of DC stuff coming this year, but also in the future. So I think it ended up being this, who would have thought, the launch pad that it would be, because it's a launch pad. It was somehow a great self-contained story while also being a launch pad. It's wow.
Like a little MCU.
Yeah.
People are going to be watching Aquaman 2 to see if Arthur really does that.
Right? Yep, absolutely.
Well, it's such a I think perfect point to put out there with Peacemaker in general. We're not here to sell it or anything. This is about a general discussion, but given that both of our shows, we talk a lot about some of the more abstract creations and how they're setting these things up for success and how they're pushing the narrative of a grander story all the time. And like you said, this is very self-contained. It doesn't rely on anything other than the characters in front of you and the story that you're running with week on, week out, right? It's not teasing something bigger. It's not referring to something in the past, really. Yeah, there are loose ties, but it kind of just runs with them. And I love how you put that this was effectively, I agree, a launch pad for 2022's DC, which, in my opinion, is the return of DC to the cinematic scale. The storytelling, we got 4 big films, but this being the first one out of the gate, and then we're going to talk about that, so that very spoilerific cameo here in a few minutes, but how that interweaves everything. And that didn't, it's funny because we'll get to that scene, but that cameo didn't take the wind out of Peacemaker for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice cherry on top, right? Like, people are still buzzing about Peacemaker, and you go to maybe Book of Boba Fett, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Some of those cameos really put a shadow over top of Boba Fett.
Mhm.
It took a lot of the heat away from that because people are talking about Cad Bane and Ahsoka and all this. That cameo was big, but it didn't take the steam or the wind out of Peacemaker, which I really, really liked. Now, Zeddy, you brought up ensemble and the idea of what Gunn was able to create here. You know, when you look at this, and I tweeted this out earlier today, this is a cast that is relatively unlikable on paper. You've got people that work for a government organization, a couple psychopaths, and you've got just a cast that you're even really not that familiar with. They're supporting characters in a bigger movie that had huge characters like Harley Quinn in it. And then you're asked to take those characters here and almost immediately have some connection, emotional or not, and then progress through. By the end of this, all of these characters, I can't even pick a standout. You know, I want to say John Cena was great like you did because I love Cena. I want to say that the actor Freddie Strowman plays Vigilante. He's my favorite. But who was this? I don't think there is a standout. So I want you to talk to me about your favorite characters and maybe favorite moments you had with them in this show.
Wow. You know, it was funny because obviously I do think John Cena stayed my consistently favorite character, but all of them had moments, and it's unbelievable that all of them actually really do throughout the show. And I think it's really because James Gunn is just so good at making you follow characters in real time, right? Like, it's you get the standard, oh, here's a team that's brought together, but they're not brought together by choice, right? They were just thrown together. So I like that you're watching them almost know each other while you're trying to know them, right? So it's, you know, here's okay, like we even talked about on our show, like, okay, they all like music, right? And here's music that they're all bonding over, and it brings them closer together, right? Here's hardcore that you find out probably did have a really hard life, like John Cena's character did. Here's Vigilante, who probably uses these crude, inappropriate mechanisms to kind of project himself, right? And then here's Econominos, who we find out in the finale, no spoilers, but he gets body shamed, right? He has these insecurities with his body, and the team makes fun of him, and they didn't know that about him. It's like, how would you, right? Because they're all still fighting to know each other. And there's Adebayo, who's Amanda Waller's daughter, who probably carries the most baggage out of all of them on the team. So for me, I like that James Gunn just picked all these little threads, and he kind of builds on them each episode. Now, granted, I might have liked certain characters a little more every episode, but it's amazing how he continues to like give you an ensemble, and he like makes all of them likable by the end. You know, like I might have really not dug Vigilante the whole way through, but I can honestly say that I do like him more than I started off with at the end. And if we see him again, I'm cool with it. But just kudos to that, because I think the whole show is you're trying to define what a character is, right? Because I think we throw the word character out. This movie has characters in it, but what is a character, right? So I think that's what I really enjoy most, is that it's defining what Peacemaker's character is and what the characters around them are and who they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Broken, flawed, vulnerable, real, and relatable characters. And like you said, Zeddy, like as we're growing with them. And so as the characters start to like each other more, we're liking the characters more and more. It's almost like a real-time thing, which is different from what we get, right? It's not like Adebayo or Economos were put to the background until the last episode and they have this like big grand. No, you're growing with them slowly but surely. Every character has a moment. So, Mr. C, talk to me about some of these characters in this cast.
You know, I was sitting here, so it's easy to talk about Cena because I'm not a wrestling guy. I was just super impressed with this guy's acting ability. So much so that I said on our podcast that, I mean, I think of guys like Schwarzenegger and Stallone and the action heroes of my day of the 80s. Of course, we've got guys now. I think the sky's the limit with what the range that he showed on the show.
Yeah.
But we talk about a side character. I loved Abadiah a lot. I thought she was fantastic. Her innocence, her being in the middle of her mother and the team, her covert actions that she's doing and coming to terms with what's right, what's wrong. I thought she was terrific. And I mean, Harcourt, my
Yes.
God, not just another pretty face, right? Because when it starts out from what we see, that's kind of what her role is a little bit. You know, she's a beautiful woman. James Gunn kind of plays it up a little bit, but then her tenacity, we get to learn more about her and her development. It was just great. At the end of the day, I think there's some rumors about where she's going to be in next. I think she is a leader. I think she's going to lead a pretty covert team. So developing these characters was beautiful. Like you said, he never really had anyone take a back seat. Everybody had plenty of time. And I think we always like to use this term that we say this a lot, that they're all where they need to be going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And really, at the end of the day, Tim, they're all where they need to be as we spring forward into either Peacemaker 2 or some of these people get sprinkled into some of these other DCEU projects that are coming out.
Yeah.
Just
James Gunn's a
wonderful.
master
Master.
picking up characters, progressing them, and then dropping them for the next person. Did it with the Suicide Squad. He's done it with this show. He's done it with Guardian stuff, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they're able to pick the Guardians up right into Infinity War and then run with them through a whole thing, and then he's going to pick them up again and likely drop them off at some destination in the future for someone to pick up that franchise, or at least part of that franchise, and run with it. So, Carlos, the emotional weight and badassery of this whole show, like Gunn walks a really fine line here with the comedy, the humor. It's wild at some points. It is hilarious, but then at other points, it's quiet, it's small, and you have John Cena sitting in a room playing a piano, and you are just in awe about it.
Mhm.
Like, talk to me a little bit about finding that balance in these shows. And this one in particular, at least for me, it was a masterstroke what he was able to do in those quiet moments. And then the next thing you know, we're running and there's this giant space alien cow thing. But it's all feels like it's a piece of one single story.
Yeah, no, definitely. And actually, it was even episode to episode. You didn't have kind of completely low-key episodes and then an episode that was 45 minutes of like all-out action and then another low-key episode. You couldn't see the budget, and where it's like, okay, we have X amount of dollars, so let's try and pull back here. Let's spend money on this one. Just every single episode was wildly entertaining from beginning to end, and there was no formula to it, which I think was what the masterstroke was, where it was just, this is the story I'm telling, and by all accounts, his goal was to tell a love story between Adebayo and Peacemaker, and it's like the platonic love story, but that was kind of the construction of it, and then just taking those two characters through the series and through the 8 episodes, it was done so perfectly, and you really truly and strongly felt that relationship by the end of it. Like that moment that they share in the hospital at the end was magic. And honestly, she's probably my favorite, to go back to your last question, through the course of the story, because you really feel the weight and the pressure that is on her, trying to juggle her marriage with the job she's forced to take on, with obviously that massive influence her mother has on her, and then with who her true self is. And that's where that love story piece comes into it, where she knows what the right thing to do is, and she knows that the relationship with this broken guy in Christopher Smith is important, and she needs to respect that, but at the same time her mom is getting her to do something else. And I think he just did such an incredible job, like having that play out through the whole thing. And like it's illustrated in no better place than in the finale for the show, where you have this kind of action set piece happening. you have him get into a precarious spot, and she has to come into it. And the two of them are in the middle of this situation where there's like this police detective who's been taken over by an alien entity. You have this massive space cow, and then you have this Peacemaker helmet that Atabaya is wearing, and it's gonna be the killing stroke to the whole show. And like it's incredible work. And yeah, man, like hats off to him for taking his shot and carrying us through this thing from beginning to end.
And I think one thing you brought up, Carlos, that I love is how all these platonic relationships were formed. It wasn't your typical, love story, because you're right. I felt like the genius he did with all these characters is they all found their humanity. And yeah, that's used a lot in stories, but if you think about it, where they all are at the beginning, it's the job, right? You can't get too attached. You don't tell people about yourself. You do what you're told, and that's it. And earlier on, Harcourt alludes to the fact that like she'll die because that's her job, right? Then the way they develop these characters, when she's ready to die at the end, when she's getting shot and stuff, that's not just for the job. It's personal at that point. It's, I'm going to die so that so that you all can live down there, go kill the cow. It's not just about the job anymore. It's about, I'm out here on the ground so that you guys could get in there. And it's so brilliant how he did that, because like Tim said at the start, they're cast very unlikable because it's the government job. It's the agent. In some ways, they're killers. And at the end, they're all fully realized with what they are and what they could be instead. And by the end, they really are those 11th Street kids. They're not working for Waller anymore. They're doing this because they want to. They want to save the world. And if they die at this point, it's for each other. It's not for this job anymore. And that's why that finale hits so hard.
Totally.
And Do You Want to Taste It's on? And that's the most hype way to bring back the intro song.
Yeah.
That might be my favorite moment of the show, because we were so used to seeing it for 8 weeks as like a joke.
Yeah.
They're dancing, and then it kicks in as they're gonna arguably go into what we think is their last stand. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going out to Do You Want to Taste It? And boy, do they want to taste life and salvation after this.
Well, and you were worried. Like, that's the thing with Stakes, right? Because you saw what he did in the Suicide Squad, and there was characters that you loved and adored. And that bastard, he killed Milton. Like, everything was on the board. And so that's why it was so impactful. And even to take it back to your point, Nico, that they were willing to die for each other, Cena arguably gives up his chance at redemption, right? Because the Butterflies, if he goes along with their plan, technically, based on all the setup that they've done for his past, that's his shot at glory. That's his redemption. That's him fulfilling his mission with being the Peacemaker. But he chooses not to, because he knows that the Butterflies will take out his friends as the very first step, right? So it's amazing that he took that small but absolutely crucial thread and brought it.
Beautifully said.
Yeah, incredible.
You know, on paper, some of the stuff that you guys are all describing, none of it makes sense. None of it carries like the emotional weight, or none of it carries the important character arcs that all of these characters go on. But yet here we are, and all have the exact same opinion about how touching some of this stuff is. Like, Economos probably arguably has the least amount of character development, but has the biggest moment, or one of the biggest moments in the finale.
Right.
And it's absolutely wild to me that things like that with careful construction can be so impactful. And like Adebayo and Peacemaker, it's so touching, but she literally has a Peacemaker helmet on and is flying around running into stuff. Like,
good.
It's crazy. I'm gonna bring in some comments here from the chat. We've got our boy Ian here.
Yeah, there he is.
Up there, talking about Adebayo, her powerful.
Yeah.
She was in Orange is the New Black for I think the whole show, and she's just a brilliant actress. And then he's also talking about my favorite Vigilante. Yes, it did start to annoy him, and I could see that aspect of it, but he was almost that ridiculous end of things. Like the fact that he was such a great killer, but also very, very like almost infantile when it comes to his ability to interact socially. I just love that piece of it. What else do we got here?
Real quick about Vigilante too, because I was
Yes.
frustrated with him, and then I fell back in love with him towards the end because I finally, kind of like Ian said, like you just realize what he actually is. Does he have a healing factor?
Oh.
We didn't find that out.
He got blown
because-
up by a grenade.
I thought he was done.
Me too.
Because when he got shot in his back and face plants, like I'm not gonna lie to you, I was gonna give Gunn serious credit if he killed both. I really thought Hardcore was done, and I'm like, wow, that's gonna hit hard. And then what's funny is when she was alive, it wasn't like in the Suicide Squad movie where when Chris was alive, I was like, come on, man, he got shot in the neck or whatever. I did not want her or him to die, so I'm like, thank God they're alive. But Vigilante, it looked like he got really screwed up in the back there, and then he's like fine at the end. I'm like, I'm not sure if that was James Gunn joke, like he can't die, or does he have a healing factor, and is he a little wired up, and is that maybe a future storyline that he has something in him that like Deathstroke has that heightened stuff? I don't know.
My biggest thing with Vigilante was I was looking for more than what is there. I was waiting for something to happen, not realizing that nothing had to happen, and then figuring it out and understanding.
I see what you mean.
It is what it is.
He's
He
just
is
a
who he is.
beautiful question mark.
You know, like everybody's being developed, and I'm like, I like him. I don't like him. I really got frustrated with him in episode 6.
It was 6 where we had a hard
And
time.
but now I've come to terms with it because
I
it
love
just it fits, and it's me understanding James Gunn and understanding that it's not for me. It's the character. It's the way it's written, and the character is what it is. Is who he-
It's a beautiful allusion to loyalty, right? Blind loyalty that he has with
Absolutely.
Peacemaker,
Right.
because that's what it is. The guy is willing to do anything, and he's like baseline psychopath, complete and utter psychopath.
Right.
But he has these moments where his blind loyalty to Peacemaker and then eventually to the team is what makes him endearing.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
you might not love it, but it's there.
Well, and he arguably had one of the best scenes in the entire series in that prison scene.
Oh, I was gonna bring that
Yeah.
up. Oh,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good.
So good, man.
Well, and
Outstanding.
James Gunn, this is another thing that he's done that he's snuck in there, right? There's a couple speeches, that one in the prison and then the one by the detective, that are just blatant commentary on current events.
Absolutely.
I said this on the Vigilante 39. Like it's funny how like Vigilante is so psychotic, and he's telling you like he's willing to kill anyone, even some good people by accident. He goes, it happens. But I love, because it's a good thing. But in all that psychoticness, I love how he still draws the line at racism. I still love how he's like, well, we have to kill your dad. He's racist. I'm sorry. And like his sole purpose in that jail is to kill them. It's so funny. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
And the tape with Economos. Right?
Yes.
Oh man.
So you'll kill people, but tape is where you draw the line.
Yeah.
Also,
that's what I love about the
one of
writing.
Low key. That's one. In addition to the one we just talked about, one of the funniest moments of the show, and it's like, this is why like I wish I was a comedic genius in terms of like filmmaking or whatever, because when they finally anoint like Harcourt the leader, which is an awesome scene, and then when they're all saying that they're with her, and then it's the 3 nurses who are like, F yeah. They cock the gun. That gets me. I've watched that episode 3 times. That gets me every time. I know it's coming, and it's still funny.
Yeah.
And then when they're like, "Oh no, you need to settle down. Like you need to settle down."
Just brilliant. Now, what James Gunn did here, we've talked about a lot of what he's done for those characters and for this story, and it being isolated. But he also likes to play both online and in this with the idea of continuity inside of a larger DC story, sprinkling in and canonizing ridiculous characters. Now, the DC guys here on the screen, which is all the other three, you're gonna have to help me with some of these, but what he was doing there and then what it eventually led to, which we're going to talk about in 2 seconds. Zeddy, the idea and the concept of these offhanded references, being a DC reader, does this land for you?
Okay, yeah, so I know exactly where you're going with. And my thing is like, okay, so I can understand if some of the jokes might have offended people that were comic book fans. I can understand that. But me as somebody, yeah, no,
I firmly disagree.
No, I'm not going down that rabbit hole because I already have. So I'm playing it political on that one. Me understandably knowing that I've watched so much HBO my whole life that I almost know that this is an HBO show. So I'm almost okay that they're going to go down that line, that it's going to be so rated R. Because I mean, even like the scene like where it's okay, that's how bros talk. I don't want to say it because I want you guys to talk to tee it up, but that's how people would talk in real life. So I don't have a problem with that particular line of dialogue. The Batman line, utterly hilarious because I mean, come on, that is kind of funny. That is
Green Arrow,
the Green Arrow line, that is funny. Like it's a stroke of genius. I mean, if you want to take offense to it, sure, but I mean, they make all kinds of interpretations of characters in comics for a reason, right? You don't have to feel offended by one particular line of dialogue. You know, I mean, look at all the continuities we get in comics, right? One Batman is different from the other in comics, right? They make that for a particular reason. So me, yeah, is that James Gunn digging deep in his canon? Sure. But personally, it was an HBO show. It was marketed as a rated R, raunchy romp of a time. You knew what you were getting into. Me personally, I was like, okay, when's James Gunn going to throw the Batman line? Because I knew it was happening. I was just waiting for it to happen. So I personally thought it was hilarious.
Well, and the thing that I loved about it is whether you believe it's canon or not doesn't really matter, right? This concept that DC's bringing into the space, it is creativity over continuity, right? And that's what they're doing here. The thing that the caveat that James Gunn puts on all this is that Peacemaker's online getting this from like random people, which is also commentary on the world right now, right? You believe this random dude that's probably a bot about this story about Aquaman or about, this guy, that guy, about Green Arrow. Like to me, it's so meta because he's bringing in the most ridiculous things, but at the same time, people believe this.
If those characters were real, those things would be on Reddit.
That's
guaranteed.
what I'm saying. That's what I said last night with Josh. Is this like we do that to celebrities now? Like, oh, the Kardashians. I bet they like. Yes, if we had these superheroes, dude. If we knew there was one with fish, we would probably joke about him and fish. To these villains, the fact that Batman doesn't kill, I love that someone finally makes fun of it, right? Because it's funny. It's what the characters would do. I mean, these are like Family Guy jokes that are now like brought to life in this DC world. And it just makes this world, this DCEU feel a lot more real. They're like, okay, there's characters who would joke about the heroes we do the same way we joke about characters we read, right? I wasn't a big Aquaman guy forever. I was making those same jokes 6-7 years ago because I couldn't take him seriously. And Jason Momoa changed that for me. And it's like Carlos said, if this was real, this is how people would talk about him. It would be on Reddit. It would be on YouTube videos,
Facebook, everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I love some of the things that they're kind of saying about the larger world. Like just with the Argus guys talking about the character of Batmite existing. Can you imagine? Like technically, Batmite has vexed Affleck's Batman at some point in time. And just the idea of that is hilarious to me.
Hilarious.
Or him talking about guys like Matter Eater Lad from the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It's just great stuff. Like, what's there to get offended at? It's funny books.
It's deep cut stuff for people, right? Like you can point at it, like that Leo DiCaprio. Oh, hey, that's kind of cool, and you can go back and then playing around with that in this world, in this space, because it brings another layer of realism to it, which I think it makes it all the more engaging when you're having a time with it here. So we got one more thing to talk about Peacemaker before we move on to the Book of Boba Fett here. And I can't, this is spoilers, guys. And this actually kind of blew me apart here. I'm going to put this here. So we got a spoiler. So for those that are watching, if you have not watched Peacemaker, please
don't leave.
Yeah. Don't
Oh,
leave,
please
but
stay,
like
please stay.
you're about to see something here. So there's a little clipping here that I yanked off the internet of the big cameo. So I have to go to the Carusos here.
Woof. Woof.
Did this surprise you? Did you I guess, go into this without being spoiled? Like, was this a jaw on the floor moment for the both of you watching it as to like the Thursday or Friday, wherever? Like, did you get to experience this?
No, because unfortunately Nick watched it at night and I watched it the following day. And like an idiot, I was on Twitter and I was like, oh, Superman was on it. And then I saw the tweet of Barry and Aquaman. So to make long story short, I knew it was kind of coming. I didn't know exactly when it was coming. I thought it was more of a post-credit scene. So it did surprise me where it was at. And I had nothing but a great time with it. It did raise a lot of questions in my mind. I started like I always do, thinking too far ahead. What does it mean? Does it mean anything? Is the significance of these 4 being there, of the 2 missing? What does it mean? But I'm going to say this first and foremost. I never thought I'd live in an era where someone would refer to the Justice League and call them that name that he did and tell them that they're late. I thought that was hysterical. That's my sacred team, man. And if I could live with that and have a good time with it, everybody else should, right? I mean, they're my guardian angels, the Justice League.
Yeah.
Then I got to be honest, the talk between Barry and Arthur was it was genius. I mean, it was fantastic. And it made me feel like so cool. I mean, restore the Snyderverse, right? It made me feel like these guys have been around now for a number of years.
It's restored, man. It's restored.
Right?
It happened
They're
on
around for
Wednesday.
a while. They're friends. They're like all of us. We sit around, we rip each other, we talk, we make fun of each other, or you do that. I mean, it's just beautiful. I loved every single second of it. I'm still trying to analyze as we're talking what it means for the future. It may mean something, it may not. We can get into that later, I guess. But damn, that was bold. It was beautiful. They let him do it. They wouldn't let what's our guy shoot the Green Lantern scene. They wouldn't let him show Jack Stewart. But they let these guys. It confuses me a little bit with Warner Brothers, but by the same token, I'm all good with it, with all of it.
And like I wasn't spoiled. So I knew I saw some scoopers, and I don't know if people actually knew and they were just shooting in the dark, but I saw some tweets like there is going to be something big in Peacemaker. So I knew that I was going to have a late night yesterday at work. So I'm like, all right, I start late on Thursday. I'm going to do the Wednesday at 2 a.m. So I did it. I stayed up till 2 a.m. Wow. I watched it. And this scene, I was like, I heard the Flash Speed Force first, because you hear it as he's walking up, and I'm like, no way. Then you see the 4 of them, and I won't lie to you, my first instinct was, okay, this is cool. They're probably just CGI, and he's gonna walk past them. Then when it zooms in on Jason, and he goes, "I'm so effing tired," I was like, no way. And then I won't lie, guys. I need "F you Barry" on a T-shirt or something.
Yeah.
That is the funniest line in DC television and cinematic history, because for all the reasons my dad said, they've been together, they're friends. That is so quintessential. The Flash joking with someone on the team. Brilliant. It shows they're aware of the joke. It was just so perfect. I get there's discourse around it, sure, but man, it's just fun. And of the characters to do that with, you can argue all day about, Superman, Diana, Batman saying it, whatever. This version of Aquaman,
yes,
Ezra Miller's Barry Allen, come on, like it makes complete sense. It was so clever. I loved it. I'll let you guys talk before we talk about the implications, because my brain went really hard. It went from being fun to like, let's really think about what this means. And there's a certain Variety article yesterday that makes me think even more things. But yes, "F you Barry" is the greatest line in entertainment pop culture history.
Absolutely.
It's so funny because, and I want to go to you next here, Carlos, to describe your experience with this, and then we'll jump to Zeddy and talk about some implications. But it's funny because I don't know if it's because I just was in the moment, because if this was Marvel, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, I'd be on a freaking treadmill, like running as fast as I can, trying to figure out where it goes. And, you know, even with that Multiverse of Madness trailer, like the Illuminati thing, like, I kind of ignored after that. I kind of ignored the rest of the Multiverse of Madness trailer because I was like, oh my God, the Illuminati. But I was able to like appreciate this moment with the Justice League and not really think much of it, which for me is an unusual experience that I can have a moment and just say, yeah, this was cool. This is exactly how it was. The implications are, who knows? So Carlos, man, experiencing this, I think you had it spoiled. Did you not?
I did. And like our boy Frank said in the comments, like the same group that was cheering about Batman dropping an F-bomb in a pretty like harsh and sinister way were the same guys that ruined this for me with their naysaying and complaining in the morning. The only saving grace is that I saw it. It was totally ruined. I was a bit angry, but it gave me the opportunity to give all you guys a heads up to like stay off social media, like don't worry about it. And then I was able to do the same thing with my wife and my oldest daughter. So then they got to experience it unencumbered, and it blew their minds. So yeah, I took the hit to make the play kind of thing. But oh man, it was awesome. Like, how could you not love that? That was just real people talking. Like, it humanized the Justice League, and it brought them all down to earth and made them all immediately lovable. And that was one of the things that has been a complaint about how Snyder presented that team, was that they were just so inaccessible and you couldn't relate to them, and they were just kind of cold and stoic. Whereas that was totally shattered by James Gunn in just a couple lines of dialogue, and it was beauty. It was beauty. Like, who doesn't want to hang out with these guys? That's what the goal is to make these characters people you want to hang out with, and now you want to hang out with Aquaman, Barry, the stunt lady that played Wonder Woman for sure. But yeah, I thought that it was cool. Like, I really I adored that scene, and even the line delivery was wicked. And shout out to Marvel Studios for filming the Flash cameo for them.
Shout out to Guardians. I'll say the only thing that could have made the scene better, but I'll live with it, and I brought this up, is like if after Barry laughs, it flashes to Henry Cavill, who's like, you know, he's sensitive about that, Barry, and then it flashes to Wonder Woman, who's like, what rumor? And then it just and like that would be funny, but Gal was pregnant is my assumption, and because she was at this time, and Henry was filming The Witcher, so that has to be why they weren't there.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure.
Well, they're saving Henry for the big pop for when he shows up in Black Adam.
Yeah.
So.
Oh,
he's there, man. He's in the universe. He's in the universe.
Me.
I don't. Oh man, just don't say that to my kid. I literally threw that at her the other day, and she got like she was like freaking Hawkeye in Endgame, where he's like, "Don't give me hope."
Don't give me hope.
It's not that serious. It's just a rumor. Like, settle down. But
I don't know, man. I think it's a nice way to wedge open the door and say, "Hey, everyone, guess who still exists?" Henry Cavill. When he shows up in Black Adam, Carlos' stake is his entire tenure in the nerd room on Henry Cavill returning in Black Adam. This was like years ago.
Hell yeah.
First, you don't show me his head. Now you just show me an overlying figure of him. Thank you.
But it had red cape and boots, so I'm happy.
Well, you get it. Did it? I don't know. I saw a little black and gray, in the back. I'm just kidding.
It's just that conveniently placed giant light. That. So Zeddy, let's talk about implications here. I know you must have loved this scene. You can shed a little light on that too, but I want you to step into what this means. The speculation is always going to run wild, and for me, I didn't think too much of it, but. What does this mean? Is there a DCEU? Is there more here, or is this just a, James Gunn doing his thing and bringing the heat while also having a little fun poking around at real world stuff?
I mean, guys, we're started. It's been rebooted. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, man, I'm gonna really want to delete my Twitter after that one, but that's fine.
You're Grogu,
yeah,
man. Everybody
so-
loves you.
Yeah,
Well,
bro.
I try.
So
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. So obviously, implications, were the first thing that comes to mind, right? And I mean, hey, look, man, say what you will about Ezra Miller on a personal level, but man, the guy's a fan. I gotta say, man. I mean, I said this last night on the stream. Between him being in that Flash TV show and now him popping up in this show, I think is arguably brilliant too. And I think Aquaman and Barry being the two most visible people, were even more brilliant. Because if you look at the year that DC's gonna have, outside of Batman, you saw
Marketing, man.
the two biggest DC characters this year, right? You got one that's gonna have the biggest implications of any DC movie that we're gonna see. So it's still important to keep them in the public eye, right? Because we literally just said people watch this show, right? And that's huge because now people at least have awareness of the Flash, which is something that I think
Yes.
we're all a little bit critical. I mean, Jason Momoa is writing off of a movie that came out 4 years ago. So it's important that you establish that he's out there now, right? Because now his movie's not till the end of the year, but people have seen him already. So that's great. As far as implications go, I mean, look, anything from Checkmate might be on the table here. Anything from, I gotta be honest with you guys, after this show, I think Peacemaker could be in another team that's not Task Force X or Secret Six. I'm thinking he might be in a JL, possibly, but maybe that's a little
There you go.
hyper crazy. But
Don't know if
tangling with The Rock definitely is something I could see on the table. And they would be
Ooh.
stupid not to tease that, in my humble opinion. But implications go, it's rather exciting. A DCEU show is, I think, exactly what they needed to go in the end for. I'm glad that we know these heroes exist in there because it's just cool, man. You guys literally just said it. There's no other word to say that it's awesome. So as far as what comes after this, I'm glad that it wasn't just a standalone Peacemaker show that had a finite ending. I like that it's kind of ambiguous, and I like that it's Amanda Waller's there, and now who knows what her next move is going to be, right? Now it's Adebayo versus Amanda Waller. Who's going to win, right? Is this Secret Six versus Suicide Squad? Is this something else entirely? Where does the implications after the Flash come into fold? I think that's what's going to be the biggest part. And Superman, that is what it is. Yeah,
James
but it's
Gunn out
awesome,
here,
man. Yeah.
soft rebooting the entire DCEU in a
Yep.
movie and a TV show, like ground up, guys. I'm telling you, they brought him in. He's given this thing a light touch. And at the end of the day, the way I look at this is they're just going to pluck what they want from what's happened, right?
Yeah.
They've got characters that people recognize in Momoa and the Flash. And I think very astute of you, Zeddy, to bring up the concept and the idea that marketing wise, these are the two next characters outside of the Batman that we're going to see. And then you, of course, have your debut of Black Adam in a different way, too. And so there it is. It ties things up. And at the end of the day, look, whether it's one universe or another, you still have Aquaman, you still have the Flash, you still have these connective tissues like Harley Quinn and everything, right? And so there's a foundation there, and they're just plucking what they want and moving forward. They're controlling the narrative, and the hierarchy has changed in the DCU, and it's being helmed by James Gunn. So, Nico, before we wrap this and move over to Boba Fett, I want to give you guys an opportunity. You too, Carlos, if you want to jump into this as to next steps. We've got season 2, we've got the Justice League here, we've got everything going on. Like Zeddy, implications. Where's the next step here with all of this?
For me, I've been thinking about this since our boy Harlow threw it in the comments. I got to see Dave Bautista as Bane.
Yeah.
That guy, he's James Gunn's boy. He literally rolled up to Warner Brothers and campaigned for that role. I think he'd be cool in it, and he can wear some clothes, unlike Drax. So, we'd probably be a little more comfortable. And I got to see that. And maybe he's the leader of their Secret Six, right? So Waller's team being the Secret Six going against Adebayo's team being the 11th Street Kids. And so you'll have to beef up that team a little bit because Peacemaker ain't going toe-to-toe with Bane. I'll tell you that much. But,
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, though.
I love it.
It's interesting because in the Vanity article, he talks about after Guardians, he's going to do these 2 TV shows. So I don't see a Suicide Squad movie that quickly. So we're going to have Peacemaker 2, and I don't know what the other series is yet, but there is something else coming. I love the idea of Dave Bautista. So part of me is a little guarded because I would like to see the return of Will Smith.
Yes.
Come back. I would like to see Idris Elba. I mean, I thought he was absolutely terrific in the Suicide Squad, the rat catcher. I'm hoping, as our guy just said, who do I want to see return? I would love to see that. I mentioned yesterday, I don't know where he's in this thing. He probably is nowhere near it as Joe Manganiello, but I would still love to see him as Deathstroke come back somewhere. But as we were talking today, we mentioned Waller. You know, Waller reminds me of Jack Nicholson from A Few Good Men, right? She's on the wall. She's there. You know, you can't handle the truth. I really want to see her develop more and a little bit more screen time for her. And I'm hoping that whatever comes next, she's more in it than just these little cameos. Because she's got a great story, in the comics that's never really been developed.
Never really been
on the big screen. She's just there in the Suicide Squad
She's
movies.
from Cabrini Green. She's from Chicago.
Yeah, you know, so like maybe with her daughter now and the battle between the two of them, we're going to get like that backstory.
Yeah.
And let's face it, she's one of the greatest actresses that's around today and arguably one of the greatest ever. So that's how I'm thinking about this stuff going forward. I do still ponder the greatest mystery of all time. And that is, it's not life after death. It's Henry Cavill. What the hell is going on? Because I don't know. I've spent too much time thinking. I'm like the guy in bed who's laying in bed, and my wife's like thinking, like, what is he thinking about? Something? I'm just like, Henry Cavill. You know, like, because it's just
Henry return.
It's perplexing to me because we all love, like, everybody knows I'm a big Suicide Squad guy, and I'm over Affleck at this point. You know, I've fallen so in love with Robert Pattinson and his euphoria at playing Batman and his desire to want to play him forever. Right? That it's so refreshing to have that. And this just brings me back to Cavill. Like, I know I think he wants to do it again. And I just loved him, and he never really got that proper way that I'm just hoping, like you guys think, that he's going to be in something going forward. And whether he's around for 10 years, but a couple of things and maybe one nice send-off movie or something. But that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm with Carlos here, and you'll hear it here first. If he threw up his role with the Nerd Room podcast, I will do the same with the Vigilante 1939.
Whoa.
I'm betting it on there.
Zeddy.
This way, if we both lose,
okay, don't worry about it.
if we both lose, I can start a show together.
The losses on our shows are going to be vastly different.
We're gonna lose V the Nerd, aren't we?
No, it's going to be Henry the Nerd. It's not Henry the 8th, it's Henry the Nerd. Henry the 39th.
Oh man!
Listen, here was my brain when everything happened. So right before I told you, like, I had fun with the scene, and then I went somewhere. All the stuff you guys said about the plot of the show, yeah, okay, great. It's awesome. I agree with Zeddy, Dad, Pop, all you guys. When it comes to the 4 they picked, I said, why those 4? 3 of them we know are coming back. Why was Superman there? Batman and Cyborg are the elephants in the room if they're not coming back, and he actually left them out. So we were arguing Thursday morning at like 9 a.m. Like he's a little more pessimistic, but I understand why I'm very optimistic. And we were trying to talk about all these reasons why it was them. Like, why? Okay, well then why wasn't Gal there? So there's a Variety article yesterday with James Gunn. He did an interview, and they asked him about the cameos. And this is, I think, helpful. They originally just wanted Jason, and then he found out Ezra Miller loves his film, so he was able to get Ezra. Then he was like, okay, I'm going to use the Justice League. The interviewer then asked him, and it's transcribed as if you're talking, so when they transcribe these, it shows like where they stop and start a new sentence or whatever. They asked him point blank, where were Batman and Cyborg? And he verbatim, I had it written down somewhere, he verbatim goes, I know there's reasons. I don't know what I could say. there's reasons. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to tell you, but it probably has something to do with their futures, meaning Affleck and Fisher, or that Batman and Cyborg. Meaning Warner Brothers said you can't use those two. They did not say you can't use Superman. Mic drop. I am being optimistic about it. I do think Cavill's in Black Adam. I think The Rock said, I get to show him, like in my movie.
Yes.
I get to have the cameo or whatever. You can tease him all you want. I'm the one who gets to show him, because this is what I have been building to. This is what I want. And
Yes.
Yeah.
you have no choice, because I'm Dwayne The Rock F. and Johnson, and I do what I want. As for everything else, I'm down for. I love that. Like you said this last night. I'm glad, and it's just a quick thought. I'm glad like the next Suicide Squad movie is not gonna just be another throw together a Task Force X and fight a conflict. It's I'm exposed, they're exposed. All the members who were on it are probably gonna start speaking out, right? So we either have to shut them up, rally them, Task Force Z, Secret Six, whatever, Argus. Zeddy said checkmate, whatever. I'm down, because checkmate James Gunn. Here's the keys. Where are keys? Are there keys somewhere? No, here's the keys. Here's the dotted line for James Gunn. Hold on. Wait, here's the contract. Here's the contract. James Gunn, sign this.
Yeah.
Please.
It's true, man. And like, kudos to Walter Hamada for being like, hey, you know your wife, Harcourt, she can be in Black Adam. So what a way to endear that couple to the DC brand, right? So,
man, also shout out to James Gunn. Good for him.
Yeah, can anyone explain to him, like, was he just like dyeing his hair for years? Like all of a sudden during the pandemic, he just had like a white beard and white hair.
Yeah,
a nice silver fox he is now.
And no disrespect to him,
he likes to do that point, like it's way up.
And no disrespect to him, but he looks better like this with the gray and the gray beard, in my opinion. He looks less threatening.
It's all that wisdom coming out and on the scripts and everything.
Right?
So
I
think universally,
Tim, is he the Kevin Feige now of the DC? Is he?
I don't know if he wants that
No,
role,
he doesn't
but
want
he's
that,
certainly playing a role of, like I said, he soft rebooted the entire universe with these two, I think. And then you start to layer in things like Black Adam and that, and then you start really point forward from the Suicide Squad, because arguably, yes, it is kind of a sequel, but it's not. And so, like I said, they're just plucking things that they like Harley Quinn, and you know what I mean. And so, if that's what they're going to do going forward, I'm game for it. Right? Is that there is a history and there is baggage, but if you start from here and go, I think he's going to have a lot of creative input though. Like between him and Dwayne's studio and how they want to construct all this going forward, right? I think that there is James Gunn, he's outright said, I'm done with Guardians after he fulfills this. Like for the guy to go back and actually do that, given what he was put through, like he has a real tie to those characters. I think he felt indebted to the cast that he had to come back and finish that with them. And who knows, man? I to be honest with you, you put James Gunn on literally anything, I'm there for it.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
So he's incredible. Well, I think universally, guys, we can say that Peacemaker was a massive hit. There was always that discussion, and I think we gotta, like, collectively, not us individually, but collectively as a fan base, stop looking and turning our nose up. Think Peacemaker, not for me. It turns out this is like one of my favorite shows of all time.
What a joke.
So there it is, guys.
I didn't ask for it.
Yeah, I don't want Peacemaker. I would like this. Well, you know what? They're not listening to the random person.
There's
on
30
the
guys in India that are super mad about this show, but I think the rest of the world absolutely adores Peacemaker. My brothers need to give Peacemaker a chance. Just give Peace a chance, bro.
All we are saying.
Yeah. Give it a chance. Give it a chance, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move on to the other streaming show that was on the other big platform, Disney Plus, and probably the show that all of us thought we were going to be having these sort of discussions and these sort of feelings over, but some of us might have been left slightly underwhelmed. Now, I don't want to kick it off on a low note, but I went back to our kind of kickoff episode for Boba Fett and some of the discussions that we subsequently had across our own shows, Vigilante 1939 and the Nerd Room. And the first 4 episodes of this, I think, kind of threw a lot of us as to what our expectations were and how they were being met for, of course, the Book of Boba Fett. Now, you look at this poster and you say, Tim, what are you talking about?
One thing is not like the other.
This looks like a fan poster of this pipe dream that we're all going to have someday that Filoni's going to get to do live action. And this is what it's going to look like. But no, this is a legitimate Disney Lucasfilm poster that was put out post episode 7 or post episode 6. Sorry. And so you look at this and you say, what do you mean you're underwhelmed? What do you mean you had issues in certain parts of it? It felt slow. It didn't build right because it's the Book of Boba Fett, right? No, I don't really know if it's that. I've been banging on the internet, banging on a show, calling it the Book of Tatooine, an anthology series that just uses the nexus of the Star Wars universe to tell stories around. And maybe we were sold wrong. Maybe the marketing pushed us in a different direction from what the Book of Boba Fett is or was, as opposed to what we thought it was going to be. Now we can shoulder some of that blame, guys, as a community, as we do our anticipation levels and our expectations for characters and stories.
No. This group does not have to shoulder anything, because there was a wrap-up show after the Mandalorian season 2, and somebody planted their flag in saying that this is an interlude chapter in the ongoing Mandalorian narrative. And I remember getting really crappy texts from people as I was at Canadian Tire trying to buy a weight bench, being like, no, Kathleen Kennedy said this is Boba's show. It's his own thing. And I'm like, cool. I don't know why you're randomly mad about our live stream last night, but all right.
I don't know.
It's not an interlude chapter. It's his own thing. Sure, fine. And then lo and behold,
it's an interlude.
Yeah.
It's an interlude. I got Boba here. I don't know if he's talking about that Chicago weather or if he's talking about something else. I don't know if I did a pretty hard cold open there, but ultimately, let's talk about this thing holistically. I think the biggest point that we made at the end of our kickoff live stream was that this is a chapter in a book. This has 7 episodes to play out. Let's see where it goes. So, Caruso's, where did this go for you? How did this wrap up as being, whether it's an interlude, whether it is a chapter in a grander story, or whether it's a standalone?
Let me start because it was probably the most uneven show
No, I'm sorry.
that I've ever watched. I don't know what, like, week to week it was. It was a series of moments, of characters, of trying to redeem everybody. It just was weird to me. I had made comments that, the actor, I think he's a great guy, but I think they showed him. I understand in the flashbacks they had to show him, but I thought in the present he should have had the helmet on all the time. I think they really ruined the character. I thought the character was great coming out of The Mandalorian. And then it just turns into something completely, like, different in episode 7 that completely, like, just changed it all. And then it was like, we're going to throw, like, these grandiose appearances again in moments, make you forget about that. And, then we're going to come back at the end and show it to you. So the whole thing was weird to me. I'm not like, I'm a Star Wars guy my whole life. I've always loved Boba Fett, but I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys I found him that interesting, so it was a major letdown for me. You said, was it an interlude? Like, it was an interlude, but not quite. It was its own thing, but not quite. At the end of the day, I think it was just the, is that you?
Yeah, sorry.
Kathleen Kennedy was
Kathleen
calling
Kennedy.
saying, throwing too much shade. We're shutting you down.
That was Bob.
That was Bob Iger. Who
That
was it?
Dave
Filoni.
no.
So listen, so here's where I'm at with it. He can articulate it a lot better than I can. I just, like I'm never going back to it. And it had some incredible moments in there, but I think those moments ruined for me some of the stuff that came before it. So I'm just like ready to get on that ship at the end with the only two characters I really care about and just continue to ride off into the sunset with them.
So
the galaxy.
So it's funny because on the first show we ever did together, we were not only talking about the Mando finale, but how excited we were for the Book of Boba Fett, and I even drunkenly purchased the Chrome Black Series figure that is just such an iconic purchase for me because it's the start of our friendship. It's so weird because and I'm glad we're doing this show like a week and a couple days after, because I still don't really know what I feel about it, and I don't, and that's not in a bad way. It's in I'm gonna try to binge it and see if it flows better, because the way we pivot and I finally started buying into what they were trying to do with Boba Fett, and I was okay with it. I do agree with my dad. I think when he's in prison, he should have the helmet on more, just because that's what he is. I think when he kept taking it off, it kept taking me out of it wasn't Boba Fett anymore, because I'm seeing Tamara Morrison, and I'm used to him being the clones and everything. So it was hard just for me personally. That's not to discredit what they're trying to do with the story, but it's the thing I'm thinking about the most is what was this writing room like, and what was this creative thing, right? Because I thought when it was announced, they're Robert Rodriguez is showrunner and he's doing all 7, and he ended up only directing 3.
And it was written by Favreau, wasn't
and
it?
And it was all written by Favreau. And then Filoni gets one, Bryce Dallas Howard gets one, and then Stephen Green and someone else gets one. So it's you see all the different touches on it, which is the weird part for me. It's Mando season 2. You do see Rick Fuyama's episode feels a certain way, and Filoni's feels very Ahsoka-y, but it all moves forward. They all go together well. It's even
all part of the same story.
Same story. Even the Boba Fett episodes feel different, and then we have the hard pivots that even visually, maybe it's because they're not on Tatooine, but visually the hard pivots in 5 and 6. I agree with Carlos, because I was saying this after episode 5 and 6. This does feel like just a chapter, an interlude, right? This is part 3 of the Mandalorian story. But it's weird that I just said that, because to put that in 5 and 6, have Boba go 4, have 2 that are massive payoff to Mandalorian going back to season 1, a new trajectory, Grogu's decision, the payoff from the season 2 finale, then to come back to this, I will admit, very fun shoot 'em up finale. I had a great time with the finale, but when it ended, I was like, whoa, they, in a couple episodes, we have every question answered from the end of Mando season 2, and it ends with them flying off. It doesn't end with Boba Fett, right? He has the first and the second with his. So maybe that's their way of saying, remember, the story continues. Part 4 is Mandalorian season 3, but at the same time, I go, you try to do all this stuff with Boba, and because of that hard pivot, the thing in the finale I didn't buy was how they were so rallied on Tatooine and how he was willing to die for that planet. I will die on my own hill and say the flashbacks were great. I get them. I still don't think we spent enough time in the present to understand why he's doing any of it.
Exactly.
And that is my biggest where I'm going. I don't know what to say about the show, because I had a lot of fun, even with some of the Boba episodes, primarily the episode 2, 4, and the finale. And then the Mando ones were such a Star Wars fan's euphoric dream. And then we come back to what this narrative is supposed to be. And so I don't get it. And was it COVID? I don't know. Cause then I look at a show like Hawkeye that had great storytelling, and Loki, great storytelling. And I'm going, why was it so, it feels like a bunch of moments where they said, let's show him on a Rancor. He's going to save these Tusken Raiders. Mando meets Luke and Ahsoka, and they're let's just use it. as this like as this launch pad, but also safety net for storyline. So I mostly had fun. I'm not willing to say it's a disappointment, but at the core of it, even with it being part 3 of the Mandalorian story, I wanted a really good Boba Fett story, and I don't know if we got that. I don't
No, and
know.
it's not a complete Boba Fett story. I think it's the
Correct,
biggest
yeah.
issue. It's like you build all the stuff in 4 full episodes, which is, you know, in my opinion, and I've said this before, I think they're trying to redeem him and get him to a point where he is like a bona fide hero in the eyes of the collective Disney fan base, so they can put him on walls in Disney World and can put him over here and say, this is your hero, because we are lacking heroes at this point in time in Star Wars. And when you look at the payoff for those 4 episodes, it's non-existent to a point in the final episode. If the Sand People had mounted up and came running over the hills to help Boba Fett, there's your payoff for those 4 episodes. Building that, the idea that they aren't alone, the idea that they are the indigenous population of this planet, and therefore they have the right to defend it against this incoming arm. You build a lot there, you provide a little social commentary at the same time, and there's a whole huge amount of payoff, even with those 2 episodes, those 2 amazing episodes that don't progress Boba's story at all. And so you're able to pay a lot of that off, because that whole concept about the Tusken Raiders or the Sand People, whatever you want to call them, it was to humanize him, and it was to redeem his past as a bounty hunter and what he did to Solo and the way that he was portrayed throughout the original trilogy in those very few sparse scenes that he is. And then again, the carrying that over into Legends. But you need to pay that off in some way, and it does not get there. And so, Carl, so I want to come over to you, because this is something that you've talked about before, and it's the question of why. And I'm going to also pull this in from the final episode that Ian's commenting on, about him at the end walking with Fennec and being like, I don't know if this is for me, actually. And so we never got the why, and then he's telling us that it's not for him. And so this confused the heck out of me. As to, it was almost like, okay, well, now you're just going to give it to Cobb Vanth, and then you're going to take off in your spaceship? Like, why didn't we do this in episode 3?
Yeah, no, and that's the reason that Boba Fett it rings a little hollow, is because it's all built on a pretty shady foundation, because we don't know the why. They, from episode 1 to its conclusion, they never did a good job telling the audience why this guy wanted Jabba's throne and why he fought for it so hard, and then why he's trying to make all the changes in Tatooine. Like, he's not native to there. There's really no tie, because if you think about it, we just know him as a guy who took a job for a gangster on Tatooine, right? So that, I think, like, the whole thing would have been served better if they had called it The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
You know, you're a year out from Mando season 2, and then that kind of sets the table for people to know that it's a continuation of Mandalorian story, but it's going to be focused on Boba Fett, ? A little bit more. And you probably don't have to do as much work with Boba as a result. And you probably tell a better, more concise story with him, knowing that you're not going to, soak in it for too long, and it's going to be finite. Whereas with this, they spent like just an inordinate amount of time setting up something that had no payoff. Like you said, we never really got to see the consequence, the outcome, the fallout of his time with the Sand People, because they were killed. But you could have accomplished the same thing if you could have accomplished way stronger if the Pikes targeted the leader of the Sand People and the kid.
Yeah.
And then, like, it's maybe the Sand People blame Boba for bringing them there or whatever. And then you have that route. But they didn't really do that, right? It's like they got bored of telling that story, and they're like, let's just go to Mando. And you had like your full out Mando episodes for the next 3, and that closed out the story, which is fine. Like, those are my favorite parts of Star Wars, period, full stop. But at the same time, if you're telling a Boba story, you gotta at least do it justice, I would think. Like, you got people that have been lifelong fans of this mysterious character, and you didn't do a great. Like, I can see wanting to reinvent him, but you didn't do either a great job of either, at least. Yeah.
I think your point about them kind of getting bored with it really hits home with me, because everything changes dramatically into episode 5. The camera work, the characters, the story, it feels very, very abrupt. You know, like, you could have really, those first 4 episodes, in a sense, you could have condensed a lot of that and had that as part of an episode inside of Mando season 2. You get the Boba episode where he appears, and it's like, okay, let's tell the story from point, I'm in the Sarlacc pit to I have these garbs on and I have a relationship with the Tuscans now, and then leap off from there. And so it just, I don't know if it was a consequence of what's his name not being able to come and film a lot of the Mando stuff. I'm not even convinced he's inside of that costume, to be honest with you.
In this one, no. Yeah.
No, like, it's just a stunt double, right? Like, that he's what's his name? Pedro Pascal. I'm not convinced he was on set once.
He was here.
Yeah, he was in
literally in Calgary. So
doing Last of Us.
Yeah, and we don't have a volume last I checked. So
no, but we do have recording studios that he could have just hopped in and put a helmet on and talked into a speaker, right? So no, this thing is, we're focusing on some of the aspects of it that, narratively speaking, don't really work. But there's some moments in this series that are things that were made of Star Wars dreams, things that we could have never have anticipated would have happened, let alone having 2 very strong Star Wars episodes that do everything from reintroduce a Naboo starfighter to pull in Luke again, and not a cameo, but a full-on character in an episode, teaching Grogu, meeting Ahsoka for the first time, Cad Bane entering live action, a Rancor. There's so much here. Cobb Vanth, Black K, it's endless. Like, this when you look at it on paper, which is very divergent from the conversation we just had, which on paper Peacemaker doesn't work, and here it is. On paper, this is the best thing that Star Wars has ever done. And I think in some instances, episodes 5 and 6 are some of the best Star Wars ever. Ever.
Yeah.
So Zeddy, talk to me about this piece of it, this Mandalorian interlude within the book of Boba Fett, where this, and you said this before, Carlos, where this is effectively episode 1 and 2 of the Mandalorian season 3. How incredible was it seeing Luke again? Grogu, maybe a little too soon, but seeing him, you can't deny the fact that it is incredible. And the training sequence, the allusion to Luke and the Last Jedi and the temple and the school, and there's so much there. Talk to me about this, man.
Yeah, I mean, uneven probably is the word you probably should use, as summary. Like, if you're going to summarize the show, for me, it just falls in line of it's just another episode of television. It's kind of how I like to describe, it's just another episode of Star Wars, and that's neither a good thing or a bad thing. You can kind of take that for how you will, but it's a testament that, in a show like this, you got to have one or the other, right? You can't, it's very hard to navigate a past and then go to the present and then go to the past and then come full circle. To me, that's very, very hard to navigate, right? And then when you start throwing all these, universe things at you, like for implications that for stuff that's going to come 2 or 3 shows later, then you kind of what show am I in, right? And I think that's the kind of thing that we were in, was what show are we really watching, right? Are we starting to, do we want to fall in love with Boba Fett? Do we want to reintroduce our love for Mandalorian? Do we want to, do we want to see Grogu again? What do we want, right? So I think that's the whole thing that we were trying to figure out. But you're right, man. I mean, obviously, when Mando comes back in the fold, the conversation on social media is a little bit different, right? And then it's man, that was the greatest episode of Star Wars I've ever seen. How cool is Mando, right? Because it's the popularity of the character, right? I almost don't blame them for putting him in the show. We probably should have expected it. But it's, it's like you said, it's at episode 5 and 6, it is kind of this weird deviation, I'll admit, but I'm almost wondering, well, what happens if he's not in the show, right? How different does the show play out, right? So it's almost like him being in the show might have kind of saved it a little bit, but at the same time, it kind of solidifies to me, and I hope I don't rub people the wrong way, because I really mean this in a genuine way, that I think it might have solidified that sometimes a supporting character is just best as a supporting character.
Yeah.
And you just have to make that supporting character great and strong, because there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me, there was nothing wrong with being a great supporting character in somebody else's movie or show. There was nothing wrong with that. So I think, to me, it's play off the character strengths moving forward. I think that's what they're gonna do. I'm not gonna say that I don't wish this show never happened. I would just, like Nico and like you guys might have said, I just probably would have loved to have been in like the writer's room and maybe figured out, like, okay, so you want to do this Boba Fett show, but you want him to be on his own for 4 episodes. And then in episode 5, you want Luke Skywalker to come in the fold. You want to possibly reintroduce Ahsoka, maybe for the first time, that people that never saw Mando. I don't know. Maybe there's people that are out there, right? And then you want to reintroduce Grogu, who most of us probably anticipated was going to come back in Mando season 3, right? So, and then here's Cad Bane, a character that most people probably never even heard of. And he gets offed in like 2 episodes and you hardly really ever see him. So I think a lot of it is like, it's cool, but did this need to happen? Or why did it happen? So, long story. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, to your point, like, there's big things that they had to cut around that we didn't get to see because they shoehorned it into this story. Because, like, I know my kid was like, as much as it blew her freaking mind, her very first comment after episode 5 or 6 was, I really hope we get to see Ahsoka and Luke meet for the first time, because that's a huge thing. And that's like a massive piece of Star Wars lore that needs to be covered. Right? Because you have his father's Padawan, and arguably the only person left that actually knows Anakin Skywalker, or knew Anakin Skywalker, around, right? But because you shoehorned it into this Boba Fett show, you don't get to see that. And like, they did a good job establishing that there is a relationship there of some sorts. But I really hope they pay it off in the future. But I think it would have been best if we just got to see that kind of naturally come together, and like, that's probably 2 or 3 or even a series of fantastic Star Wars TV.
Yeah.
It was these two meeting. Like, I don't think it's even arguable. She's like the better quote unquote Jedi of the two. Like, she could pants Luke Skywalker.
Oh, she could body him. Over.
And we were kind of robbed of all that, because they're just like, oh, everybody into the pool.
Yeah.
We got this Sand People show that's not working. Like, I don't know.
Well, like, to that point, though, and I don't want to keep going kind of like slightly below the line on this one, but when you look at this show, like, these are very competent creators. Your Favreau's, Rodriguez, Filoni. You tell me that they didn't step back and look and see, this feels a little uneven. Like, the fact that we go 2 episodes of a show with the main character never saying a word, and only having a small cameo at the end of the second part of that. Like, there's something a little off there, and I don't know if we're ever gonna find out, or really want to, or need to find out why that is. But I have a really hard time seeing the guy that created Iron Man and basically seeded the MCU, brought us Mandalorian season 1 and season 2, didn't take a step back and look at us, be like, there's something a little off about this. Maybe we need to switch a few things around here, or it's so abrupt. The fact that, it's not abrupt, because they do tease that Mando's coming, but it almost feels like Mando in isolation, and then you get the big battle. But then you get this story that takes us away. So, Caruso's, you're both looking very inquisitive right now. Like, you want to say something. So here's the floor.
The thing that really bothered me, too, about it was, like, they used it to reunite Mando and Grogu, and it was so unaffected. It just was terrible to me. Like coming out of the Luke thing, which is, like you said, legendary, and we know the young man had to make a big decision there, right? And I think we all kind of guessed what he would do. But that initial meeting with the woman, and in the heat of the battle, it's like I'm trying to just get in their minds, like you said, like, did they really think that was the best way to make them reconnect? It's just, it just felt it just felt weird, and it didn't land for me. And it kind of reduced some of the effectiveness of episode, was it 6 with Luke? And even some of that, I was just kind of like, wow, like you use this whole show to like this big moment in time, these characters coming together, and it just flat. It fell flat.
What a hook! What a hook, though, having the choice be your lead into season 3.
Yeah. Amen.
Like we ultimately know what's going. They built that Naboo starfighter to fit Grogu in the back. Like,
of course.
Yeah.
And like there were some cute moments with Grogu in the final episode, but
He
did
didn't
you
need to be
actually
there.
need
Exactly.
No.
And then it makes Luke look like an ass because he's
It
sticking
makes
with this
Your
kid
line was the
in the
best.
astromech Uber and sends him off. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, how do you know that kid's gonna be delivered to the Mando? And you
That's
drop him off with the mechanic? Like, Luke lost some respect, man.
Well, like Luke Ren. Ooh.
It
and
was
that's
weird,
the
man.
thing, and then we'll of course try to do some more positives. But what you guys both just said is like the ending, the Mando season 2 finale, and then the emotion in episode 6 where Mando realizes he can't see Grogu. I wish their reunion was more emotional.
Mhm.
Instead of like, hey, you're back, let's go flying. Like, wow, you picked me. Like, wait a minute, you're supposed to go with them. Like, why'd you pick me? Like, unless they're saving that for Mando season 3 and there's gonna be a scene, but I don't
it
know.
lost its momentum already, though.
The momentum's dead.
It's already there.
Here's my big takeaway when you said I was looking inquisitive, because I'm still thinking about this. I don't want to. I'm not taking away credit from Favreau and Filoni and co. when I say this, so I hope it doesn't come off that way. But I don't want to give them, and I think we all might feel the same way. But I've talked to other people and other fans, and it's fine to have thoughts, opinions, etc. But I think some people, and I'll even say us to include every Star Wars fan in it, whether you feel this way or not, I think we gave them like too much credit in the sense of like, oh, they have this whole story planned out. I don't think they do, because this series feels like the placeholder of, we got to use Luke. How are we going to use Luke? Okay, we teased the Boba show. Apparently, like with these volumes, and apparently like Jon Favreau is writing scripts. Like, it's going to sound exaggerating, and it is, but like he's writing like 10 scripts a day, I hear. Like, he has all these ideas, right? I think they said, hey, you can figure out what you want to do with Luke, but let's do this Boba show. And okay, wait, we're not going to use Luke anymore. Let's wrap that up in Boba so that we could start fresh in Mando season 3, because we want to do the Mandalore stuff. We realize how complicated this Jedi thing is going to be. It feels like that. We got to use Luke. All right, how are we going to use Luke now? You're right, it's too much. You're right. That means Grogu gets killed by Ben Solo. Okay, wait a minute. We got to get him out of there. But do we want to waste time in season 3 doing that? No. Okay,
Yeah.
Robert, we need 2 of your episodes, okay?
Mhm.
We need 2 of them, and then we'll bring them together in the finale. You get to shoot Grogu and Mando. Are you cool with that? Yeah, all right. And that's what happened.
Can I make Cyborg spin? Okay.
Yeah, right.
You can have the 2 episodes.
Can I make Cyborg spin? Your soul.
That is
In
amazing.
my head, I thought you went back to Cyborg not being present in the Justice League.
No, man,
What is he talking
That's
about?
why he wasn't in peace.
Yeah, great value
Doesn't it-
Cyborg
But
in
doesn't it
Mando.
feel like that though? It kind of feels like they were stalling for a year, and this is how
Well-
they solved some of their writing.
It's
This
amazing.
this could also be, when you step back and look at it from a Disney Plus perspective, this could also be a consequence of Lucasfilm. I don't care what you put to screen, we need a Star Wars show in this slot.
Yeah.
And if it's like, Pedro Pascal's not available for like 2 years to shoot the Mando, we can get away with most of it. We don't know what we're doing here with our merchandising gold mine in Grogu. Let's put something out there. And like Boba Fett, I think at the onset, we all kind of agree that that seems like a natural segue out of that if you're not going to do Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Ahsoka's just got introduced. Maybe you're not ready to do the Jedi lore. Maybe you're not ready to go heavy into that. But this to me feels like you're meeting like what we call KPIs, key performance indicators. Lucasfilm, you got to put one Disney Plus show out, or we're going to have problems here. You know, we've given you 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever you need to make a movie, but we need to fill the streaming service bucket.
That's not a bad call either. That is reinforcing what I'm thinking too. Yeah.
And it's so it at times it feels rushed, at times it feels uneven, as you said, underwhelming in some cases, Eddie, to the point where, you know, it's hard for me. It's really hard for me because there are moments in this that are unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah.
But looking at a holistic, especially when you shoulder to shoulder with it with Peacemaker, which was so consistent yet unpredictable, and you have this, which you're relying on a lot still of the OT, which I love, but like the forward progression of characters, it didn't happen. Like Boba, you pick him up, he's in one spot, and we're relatively at the same spot with him at the end of the show, where he's like, I don't know if I'm about this life anymore.
Yeah. We shouldn't be in a position where your title character, I don't know about you guys, but you were almost a little disappointed when he shows up. And it's like, I'm all for brown ball guys leading shows and all that kind of stuff. But like, it got to the point where like when Boba showed up, I was kind of like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
Like we got to spend time with Boba. Like what's Fennec up to?
And that's the thing.
Yeah. And right. Fennec was great. And that, you know, and Black K, I mean, he was awesome, dude. Like I didn't even know who he was. I'm not a cartoon guy, or I didn't read a lot of comics, so he was outstanding. But that cast of characters, the biker gang, and I mean, I said it before, it reminded me of like some MTV 80s videos, like Pat Benatar, Love is a Battlefield. I mean, it looked so cheaply done, and I was like, I was watching that, and I'm like, is this real? Like, are these like really characters like in battle? And nothing against the actor or actresses that played the role. Like I'm for everybody, but it didn't look right. You know, when they go into that doctor, when he goes to repair Fennec, that was like, I don't know. That reminded me of like Blade Runner. I'm trying to even think like some
Aeon Flux.
Yeah.
Like a bad, like, you know, sci-fi channel
Stargate
deal, right?
Oh,
Something
totally.
like that. And that's what perplexed me about the entire show was like you had that, and then like you said, Tim, you had some of the most important moments ever
in this story.
Right.
Of this story.
And you're like, what is going on here? Like, this is just so here's what you said. When you watch Peacemaker, right after Peacemaker's over, he's in the right place and you can't wait to see more of him. Like Boba Fett, like at this point, like I don't really care if I see him again. I know that sounds bad. I'm sure he's going to be in season 3 in the Battle for Mandalore, and I'm sure he'll probably be written cooler and be more effective. But certainly at this point right now, like I don't care. If they said they're going to put Boba Fett on hold for quite a while, I'm like, okay, we got so much other stuff coming out. Let's just go.
I personally can't wait to see Tamora Morrison again as old Captain Rex. In the But yeah, I don't need to see Boba either, brother.
Well, and Boba, like I think Zeddy, you brought this up, and Carlos, everyone's actually touched on this idea of like the supporting piece of it all, right? Maybe he's better as a supporting character, not a lead character, because even in this show, a character no one's talking about enough is Fennec Shand. She was amazing in this. Like absolute standout. She was intriguing. What is she up to at the end, right? Where are her allegiances in all this? Does she want to be on the throne? Like there was they built so much into her. She was so well and so well acted. And I'm more intrigued by where she ends up at the end of this. Because look, you step back and watch this, she's running the show.
Oh, she's
like Boba Fett is sitting there being like, I don't think so. And she's like, yeah, you should do this.
Well, it was weird how she ends up taking out the Pikes, who, if you're telling a Boba Fett revenge or justice story for what the Pikes, I guess, inadvertently did to Boba by taking out the Sand People, it shouldn't be her kind of doing the Batman stealth takedowns of the Pike inner circle, as much as I loved her. And if you want to do something really cool, you could almost have Boba lose the fight to Cad Bane, not to the point that he dies, and she's the one that takes out Cad Bane, and then you pay off that confrontation that they have in the Bad Batch, and you tie it back to your animated stuff if you want to, right? It was weird, right? Like,
well, and it's you've taken Boba on this like redemption arc, right? And what a way to twist that redemption on its head, that he's still got a little bit of that bounty hunter in him, and he's gone in and behind everyone's backs killed the whole inner circle.
Yep.
Mhm.
Played
Right?
much better
There's
that
something
way.
there. You do that because you've given Fennec all of the power and all of the scenes in this by having him being something different. And there's a story to tell there of her maybe seeing him as being weak and her trying to take him out, and you kind of twist her as to being somewhat of a villain. But I think ultimately there's all different kinds of ways, and it kind of, it's a bit of a head scratcher, right? Because I want to come in here and scream about Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka and Cad Bane and seeing all these characters and seeing this poster in real life. Like this is crazy. You put this in front of us 3 years ago. We said, "What are you doing? This is crazy."
fan art.
But
Yeah.
fan art, exactly. But here we are, and it's real. But at the same time, it is harder when we step back as people that are looking at these things with a slightly more critical eye. We're kind of building in our experiences, and we have these platforms which we do, look at these things and kind of give it a full assessment. And unfortunately, this one didn't land the same way as maybe The Mandalorian or Peacemaker or some of the other stuff that's been put out there. But at the same time, I am excited for where Star Wars can go inside of Disney Plus. This seems to be where they've selected how they're going to tell stories. They've chosen this MCU route, which is exciting, with more intertwined stories, save of course Obi-Wan and Andor, which are their next two shows, which are going to take place outside of this story. But I'm excited for where this story can go. Mandalore, Ahsoka, Luke's on the table. So much. There's so much there. So let's wrap this one up on a positive note. Where's everyone excited? Zeddy, where are you excited for where Star Wars is going to go in the next couple of years? Is it Obi-Wan at the end of May 25th? Is it Andor? Is it the next steps in this post-Return of the Jedi storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I want to say all, because it does all sound really, really cool, right? I mean, to go back to that Rogue One style type show with Andor, I'm really excited for that. That sounds really cool. I'd be remiss not to say that Obi-Wan's probably going to be our Star Wars wet dream for, 6-7 episodes, whatever that's going to be. That's really going to bring all the feels for a lot of people, and I'm really excited for that one. That's going to be an awesome one to break down with you guys. And yeah, Mando, I mean, that's probably going to recapture the magic, and I think that's what people are, in hindsight, really looking forward to. But all in all, I mean, you're getting Obi-Wan and Anakin in a little less than 2 months, so there's that. Andor's right around the corner. Then Mando's probably going to put a nice bow on it. So, and then you got Ahsoka that I would assume is coming relatively soon in the short term future as well. So it's all really exciting. There's going to be a bump in the road every now and then, but that doesn't mean that what we get is bad. It's just, it's coming, man. I mean, like you guys said, there's so much great stuff coming, and this universe continues to cater to everybody, which is the most important thing. At the end of the day, is that fans, for the most part, are happy. And I think, in hindsight, people are happy with Boba Fett, but they could have been happier. And I think that's kind of where we.
I like that.
Where we should leave off with that one.
Yeah. Carlos, man, talk to me a bit about the next steps of Star Wars here.
Well, I'm ride or die with Mando. So like that's my guy. That's basically Batman in a galaxy far, far away. So I got my soft spot for grizzled warriors with their young child.
I will always follow you around the galaxy, Carlos.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's my bag. Be it Bruce Wayne or Geralt of Rivia or Din Djarin. That's I got a type, and that's it. So I'm excited for that. As much as I like to trash Andor for the sake of my boy Rick out there, I gotta say I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing that bridge period of time. So that bridge between the prequel era and the original trilogy era. So that'll be cool. But I want to actually talk about something that you guys brought up on your show with Luke and Nick. You talked about, being a little uncomfortable with them using the computer process for his voice and the computer mapping for his face. And that got me thinking. I was like, maybe you're right. Like maybe we shouldn't do that, and maybe you give people an opportunity because, like, obviously the technology didn't exist back in the day. But you got to think, like, to bring it back to the Italians for Spider-Man, we would have been robbed of like Robert De Niro playing a young Vito Corleone
Yeah.
without if that type of technology existed, because they would have just done. You have a superstar actor in
Yeah.
Marlon Brando. If that technology exists back then, like, does Coppola do the de-aging thing and stick Brando's performances into a computer?
Yeah.
And
Well, look at The Irishman, what they did with that movie, right? I mean, it looked okay, but it was kind of awkward. It was weird. You know,
There's times where it's jarring.
yeah, there's
times
times
where
where it's
it's
jarring.
Oh,
the
yeah.
fight at
Yeah.
the convenience store.
You know, the Luke Skywalker thing is amazing because part of me, I don't know, man. Part of me almost wishes like that's just it. What we just got here, and maybe you don't. But then you bring up Ahsoka and him. I don't know what they're gonna do with it. You know, it's just so. What I'm most excited for is Mando, because to me, he's one of the great characters, new characters for somebody like me. That we, you know, Peacemaker too, but I just love everything about him, and I really can't wait for Grogu to develop and speak. I'm like, that is because we've been so spoiled this year with you know, the Batman coming, with No Way Home and all this great stuff, that's going to be like my big thing is when Grogu starts to talk and how they're going to incorporate that, the communication, and maybe they won't do it for a few years or whatever, but and Obi-Wan to me is that's what I'm really most looking forward to, because I know Mando's at the end of the year. So Obi-Wan to me, Christensen coming back, Hayden Christensen, it's just that's a whole thing. Nick was telling me, explaining to me a little bit. What was you talking about, the Clone Wars?
Yeah, you didn't know.
I don't know any of that stuff,
yeah.
you know, but that Darth Maul storyline is one of the great things I've ever heard of. And it's a damn shame that never made it to live action, because that would have been something for me. Like, so
I bet you see him in Obi-Wan.
I hope.
Well, that's what I'm asking him, and that's why the other
Darth Maul could have saved the whole. He could have stopped the whole original trilogy from happening if Ahsoka let him do what he wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting stuff. I think that, you know, this thing was. I think we all wanted this to be more than what it was, but I think the future for Star Wars in this platform is nothing but going to be promising.
Yeah.
For me, it's
Kenobi.
It's happening, man.
I wanted to do the scream like he does in Rebels, but I'll wake up the fam here. No, guys, I wish I could. I'm excited for everything Star Wars. Even more of Boba Fett. I might be in the minority there.
No. I hate to do it.
But I don't even care if this sounds like hyperbolic or too hyped, as Pete calls me the Red Bull of Twitter. Listen, I think Kenobi is just going to be the greatest thing ever. So I don't even care. I saw a tweet today. Someone said that they're not going to fight once, but twice. I don't care if that devalues the last time we met. I was a learner. Now I'm the master. I want to see these guys fight 90 times. I want to cry. I want to see the weight of their brotherhood fall. I want to see Vader like we saw in Rogue One, where he's just absolutely washing everyone who comes his way. I want to see hello there. I want to see Ewan back in the flesh. I think Kenobi's gonna possibly the flashbacks to Clone Wars, seeing a live action Captain Rex, just the armor, Cody. Man, I think Kenobi. I could not be. And John Williams is apparently doing part of the score.
Yeah, he's doing the Kenobi piece of it.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Kenobi, I'm all in. Every other Star Wars thing is cool, but now Kenobi has risen to this level of that's it. Like, that's my Star Wars, like No Way Home right now. That's my Star Wars, the Batman right now is going to be Kenobi. And if that thing disappoints, which I don't think it will, because Deborah Chow was her Mandalorian stuff. if that show doesn't deliver, you won't see me. I'm going to go into a Star Wars hole and you won't see me for a long time because I cannot go 0 for 2 with Boba Fett and then Kenobi and Vader. Like, you cannot. I can't go 0 for there. I can't.
Yeah. There's so much fertile ground for them to get into with Obi-Wan, and I don't think they're going to be beholden by a single line in A New Hope. If anything, I think it's going to make it better. Yeah, because you can twist that line around and you can write around it that when he says he was like he's still the apprentice to Obi-Wan, right? At that Vader transition.
Man, and at the same time, it's 9:20, your kids are probably in bed. Who gives a shit?
Yeah,
like it's a line of dialogue. Like these people that are like, so it's not the Bible. You don't need to hold on to these sacred cows because of a line of dialogue here or there. Like if you need to walk on some line to develop the best character study you can in Kenobi, do it. Who cares? Who cares about some line that was uttered in 1977? Who cares about comic books? Who cares about books? Deborah Chow, do what you need to do.
Do what you need to do. And
what does George
like, that's
think?
the thing too. Who George? I don't know. I want to see George Lucas direct one episode of something. I just want to see it. That's the other thing I'm hoping for. I want to see him do one thing. Okay, Tim. Okay, maybe not.
He comes on a set and gives his nod of approval. Yeah, I like that.
You got a better chance seeing Spielberg than you do Lucas.
Add an extra banter there. Oh, wait, also real quick, because I know we want to maybe wrap this up and hang out, but wait, we need to talk about the most egregious thing the Book of Boba Fett did. With everything we just said, and like we said, I want to say kids are in bed, so I have to do the one F here. No, they killed fucking Max Rebo. He's dead.
I maintain that he got out of that.
Buddy, that guy doesn't move very fast, brother. That guy doesn't move very fast.
He's good, man. Like I was so hyped that Max Rebo was still getting gigs post Jabba's palace.
Dead.
He was. He literally sent me that DM and a picture of his Max Rebo figure.
Max Rebo's
still getting gigs,
what
man.
They should have did was film the post-credit scene where he just laid in a circular
then he just
piano.
Like popped up.
You know what? And that would have been better than what we got.
Max Rebo is dead.
Or he's in the Baka tank.
There it goes.
Time to pour one out for Max Rebo. Pour one out for Max Rebo. Pour one out for my brother.
Wasn't he on the sail barge too?
Yeah, he was supposed to be on the barge.
So that guy gets mad gigs.
Man, you saw that thing looked like when Boba Fett come out of the Sarlacc. It was in shambles. No, I'm gonna maintain that Rebo he's good to go. He's good to go.
I do hope that becomes like a meme how he like doesn't ever die and like
he just like shows up everywhere.
He's like playing somewhere. Like how does this guy
I got a beautiful Power of the Force figure right there. Max.
Ding dong, Rebo lives.
Bing bong.
The music never dies, man.
The music never dies.
Rebo is Elvis and MJ.
Yeah. He wasn't there. He wasn't there, man. Off hours. He's in the green room in the back.
You're right.
He was a little bit of the Jabba's hookah pipe or something.
Oh man,
who knows? Who knows? But gentlemen,
helmets washed in that place. Good.
Yeah, that was weird too.
Right?
I'm not giving you my helmet. This is like my livelihood here.
And it only takes like 30 seconds. They left and came back. I'm like, what did you do?
Yeah.
It's like
when you're trying to get out of work and you just spray it really quick and then get out of it.
On the thing and it just shoots water.
It's like this is like a highly sophisticated electronic helmet. Like,
but Daddy Bats, I gotta say, with that place, Flashdance, man.
Dude. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, still, like, Flashdance.
Gentlemen, this has been
fill my helmet anytime.
Yeah. Is that a metaphor? Cleaning your helmet? I don't know. But anyways, we're getting a little late here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Peacemaker. Gentlemen, it has been again an absolute pleasure. I always love doing this, having some fun breaking these down, sitting on the serious side, getting into the depths and details, but also ending the show by talking about washing helmets here. So I gotta give a shout out to Vigilante 1939. These guys consistently putting out just incredible content across the board. The busiest guys on planet Earth during the release of No Way Home. You guys got some exciting stuff coming up here. Throw out some promos for what you're doing, what you're getting at here in the next couple of weeks. and also all the handles for the shows and everything.
For sure, yeah. Well, please follow at the Vigilante 1939. It's on Zeddy's screen there. We do shows. That's how we found these two incredible brothers of ours here. On top of that, we got a lot of cool shows coming up. We are gonna say you're gonna see tweets about it soon, but the Batman comes out a week, 2 weeks from today, which means 1 week from today we got to have our tailgate. So either Friday or Saturday of next week, we're gonna look to do that. Either February 24th, 25th, 26th, whatever day it is, we'll talk about that. But you can follow me here everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok. And also follow at Italians for Spidey. We do a Spider-Man theme show with Peter Vera as well.
Just right there. Come see me on
You
Twitter.
did it right, because last night you whiffed.
Yeah.
Last night you went redemption.
These are golden times, man. The Batman's coming.
Yep.
He's coming.
Spidey.
Boom,
And it looks like Spidey's adding a little bit of extra footage to No Way
On March
Home.
11th, apparently, extended version in theaters.
Nick's going to be conflicted.
I'll
After
see
he
you
sees Batman, he's going to go
6 more.
see Spidey for 6 more times.
6 more, baby. Hashtag 6 for 6.
Love it. Love it. Zeddy, my dude.
Oh, thank you, gentlemen. I can honestly say I think we answered the question. Do you really want to taste it? Well,
Yeah.
I tasted it, and it was very, very good, let me say. So always a blast with you, gentlemen. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Nick Zennick. Most importantly, I would like you guys to follow Vigilante1999 on Twitter and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where you may have a first look thoughts at the Batman. Wink, wink, wink. So you're gonna want to subscribe to that YouTube channel. Just saying. So a lot of cool things coming on that feed. But gentlemen, until the next one, it was an honor. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. You know, we got the 1-2 punch going here, man. We kick these things off. We end these things. It's lovely. But even with the Batman, you know, the Vigilante boys are teasing a little bit of a tailgate. We got something that we're looking at here in the Nerd Room for a little follow-up to the Batman, and we're doing the Paint the Town Red live stream sometime in March. It'll be after the Batman, likely around that 11th, 12th marker.
We're in there.
So we're gonna do a little tailgate, and we're gonna try to bring in some voices, a tailgate style. I will say we're not gonna replicate, of course, what the boys are doing there, but it is about bringing in some new voices to the team here, to the table, and talking a bit about the Batman, this epic, huge movie that is dropping on us here in the not too distant future. Some of us a little later than others here on the stream, but I'm extremely proud of you boys for getting that call to the theater.
Yeah.
You guys,
I went on a lot of dates to get that
Cool,
screen, let
man.
me tell you.
We'll send.
Yeah. Cannot wait.
Acknowledged as one of WB's favorite children.
If
Yeah.
only they saw
They're
our
like,
Twitters.
yeah,
If they only listen to the podcast.
They only
Yeah.
saw our Twitters. They would
they're,
change
they're
them.
like, we got these guys on Titans. Maybe we'll throw them a little something.
Yeah,
something and
yeah.
see if we can
They're
get
the
'em
guys.
on.
They're the guys keeping the Titans lights
Well,
on.
I love you.
Yeah. you can follow Carlos right there, and you can follow me right here. And the Nerd Room podcast every single Thursday. Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and beyond. You can catch everything there. We just threw down our big Super Bowl trailer discussion and a whole bunch of other stuff going on here, guys. So again, I'm much appreciated to the crew here at Vigilante 1939. Make sure to go and listen to those guys. They're absolutely incredible. And we're going to be back at this, I guess, with Obi-Wan over on the Vigilante YouTube page for kickoff for that one at the end of May. And of course, we've got our pre and post Batman shows that we're all going to do here. So lots of live streams coming here in the future. And if you liked our Star Wars discussion or not, you may just like the power of the Force. And so we did a live stream last week, actually, with our boy Mike Tarkin, and talked about power of the Force, figure collecting, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're not talking about Boba didn't do it for you, maybe the Boba or maybe the power of the Force discussion will. So, gentlemen, with all of that being said, I'd like to thank each and every one of you, as always, for entering the Nerd Room here, and we can't wait to do this again. So thanks to everyone in the chat, and thanks for everyone who's kicked around for the last 2 hours. We always try to keep these things short, but we always end up going 2 hours. So 2 hours is the marker, guys.
And Frank, that Billy is guaranteed, baby. It's coming.
Yeah. 1 Billy. There it is. There it is. What a way to end the show. The Batman is on the horizon. We will talk to you guys all soon, and make sure to give us a subscribe, a like, all that comment stuff here on the Nerd Review YouTube channel. We're trying to get over that 300 sub mark here by the end of this weekend. So if you can, go give that a subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. Next Thursday at a minimum. YouTube, new videos every week. Ian, who's been in the chats, is giving us videos like crazy. So let's do this, boys. Let's on to the next, because it's just the way our brains work now. We'll talk to you guys soon. And thank you so much, everyone, for entering the Nerd Room.